A desolate, fiery landscape stretched as far as the eye could see. A lone figure, clad in black, approached a fallen warrior, his armor scorched and his body bloodied. The standing figure drew closer, his sword dripping a crimson trail onto the barren ground. He loomed over the defeated warrior, sneering at the man once hailed as a hero by many, now reduced to this pathetic state. The victor was the picture of elegant cruelty, his uniform immaculate despite the surrounding devastation. He twirled his blood-stained sword with a flick of his wrist, a smug, self-satisfied smile playing on his lips. He had a name, Fallen Star, Hayden Reich. The fallen hero, Hayden, coughed, his voice strained with agony and disbelief. He questioned how Julian could do this to him. The treacherous supporter, who had bolstered Hayden's heroic image, now reveled in his downfall. Hayden questioned his former master, wondering if he could truly commit such a heartless act, an unsettlingly gleam in his narrowed eyes. Julian's twisted grin widened. He confidently raised his sword. Such an action presented no challenge to him. A young man watched the scene unfold on a computer screen, his face contorted in a mixture of shock and outrage. He slammed his fist on the desk, a half-eaten bowl of instant noodles trembling beside his keyboard. He found it impossible to believe such a meaningless end for Hayden. The trailer for the Kill the Demon King Starting Now DLC played on his screen, a stark contrast to his rising fury. He thought that shouldn't have happened. Hayden Reich, the hero of the Northern Frontline, was a figure of legend. Even in the direst situations, he had led everyone to safety. He was lauded as a genius in demon hunting, a noble figure, and, most importantly, the protagonist of this game. The gamer found it absurd that the protagonist could die so easily, betrayed by the villain who had once served him. Julian, no less. He muttered, recognizing the cruel irony. He slammed his fist on the desk again, the force of his anger shaking the monitor. He resented the game developers, from Well Software Company, blaming their curse for this disastrous turn of events. His investment of time and money, 5 years, 100,000 hours, and 38 million won, felt utterly wasted. Online, the comment section erupted in chaos. Some users speculated that Julian might be the new protagonist, while others defended the aesthetic choices of the character design. The gamer found himself speechless. He was not impressed. The treachery of a slit-eyed character was unacceptable. He was not alone. One commenter, going by Lisa Ho, echoed his sentiments and vowed to cancel their pre-order. With a decisive click, the gamer canceled his own pre-order. He gestured dismissively at the screen, throwing away the game's merchandise. He decided it's time to bid farewell to the game, wishing never to encounter it again. He flung himself onto his bed, declaring the game a ripoff and utter trash. Despite his frustration, he couldn't deny the game's exceptional graphics and expansive world. It had been his solace, a small resting place that soothed his weary heart after starting his first job. Now, with the game ruined, all he had left was his orchid. He cradled the plant gently, finding a strange comfort in its presence. He murmured to it, wishing it wouldn't become like that disappointing game and to grow up healthy. As he sprayed the orchid with water, a strange, disorienting ding echoed around him. He paused, a flicker of confusion crossing his face. A message from Well Software Company appeared on his computer screen, identifying him as Mr. Lee Seo, the player who had dedicated 5 years to their game. Lee Seo wondered if that was an automatic reply, that the message confirmed his identity and acknowledged his pre-order cancellation, assuming dissatisfaction with the story's direction. He stared blankly at the screen. His annoyance flared again. He questioned whether they were refusing a refund. He reread the message and got distracted. Then, another ding announced a link. He clicked it hesitantly. Suddenly, a blinding light engulfed him. His glasses flew off, and he felt himself being pulled into the screen, his body twisting and turning in a vortex of energy. He desperately tried to shut off the computer, but it was no use. He screamed as the screen went blank and the room fell silent. He found himself falling, tumbling through a disorienting void. He landed with a thud on a rough, unfamiliar surface. He coughed, pushing himself up, his vision blurry. He asked himself where was he. He realized he was in the very wasteland where Reich and Julian had their final confrontation. A monstrous scorpion, its stinger poised menacingly, loomed over him. It lunged, and he instinctively scrambled back. He recognized it instantly. The scorpion demon from Kill the Demon King, starting now, displaying character traits, exceptional swordsman, incredible instincts, and the ability to detect a demon's weakness. A holographic game status window materialized before him. He stared, utterly bewildered. He needed to run. The scorpion's massive claws swiped at him, and he narrowly dodged, his mind racing. He knew that a single hit would obliterate him. A glancing blow sent him sprawling, and he braced for the end, convinced he was about to die. But the pain never came. He touched his body, surprised to find himself unharmed. He stared at the scorpion, which seemed frozen in place. With a surge of unexpected strength, he punched the monstrous creature. The scorpion started crying. He stood there dumbfounded. He felt strangely light, as if his body had always been this agile. He then realized what must happen. After reading the message in the game status window, "Mr. Lee Seho, how about you change the story yourself?" This was character possession. He found himself within the game world, screaming internally. Still confused and disoriented, he gripped the hilt of a sword that now appeared at his side. He stepped across the blood-soaked ground, his mind reeling. The character he had possessed was Hayden Reich, the very hero he had spent countless hours playing. He unleashed a powerful energy blast, decimating the remaining fragments of the scorpion. He stood victorious, still in shock. With his newfound strength and the abilities of Hayden Reich, he had a chance to change the story, to prevent Reich's death at Julian's hands. Another ding echoed, and a new window popped up. Swordsmanship Foundation. You have obtained the common attack, Crescent Slash. He blinked, processing this new information. This wasn't Hayden's skill. He took a shaky breath and drew the sword. The weapon felt strangely familiar in his hand. His eyes glowed with an unnatural red light, and a chilling silence descended. More windows appeared, detailing character appearance. Silver hair, slit eyes, poker face. Further attributes materialized. Exceptional swordsman, Demon King's vessel, immaculate mana control, incredible instincts. Finally, a name appeared, Julian Cryfart Plassen. He recoiled in horror, clutching his head. This was Julian, the very character who had betrayed and killed Hayden. His new game profile highlighted all of Julian's traits: slit eyes, formal speech, a poker face, and a two-faced nature. His incredible instincts, color negation, swordsmanship, status as the Demon King's vessel, and immaculate mana control were all listed. The imposing, ornate building stood bathed in sunlight, a picture of aristocratic grandeur. Inside, the newly embodied Julian Cryfart Plassen gazed at his reflection. A walking hypocrisy, the hotbed of betrayal, the new body was described. His features, particularly his fox-like eyes, perfectly embodied the essence of a villainous character. The thought of inhabiting such a persona was unsettling. He stretched his new face, testing the limits of its expressiveness. He found himself struggling to control his features, a wave of disbelief washing over him. A week had passed since he'd become Julian. During that time, he had desperately tried to return to his own reality. Shaking the status window, searching for resources, all attempts had proven futile. However, a new, unwelcome reality had set in. Even his internal monologue now adopted Julian's formal speech patterns. It was a constant, irritating reminder of his predicament. Despite this, he took a moment to appreciate his surprisingly good looks, realizing the origin of Julian's popularity. He admired his physique in the mirror, pondering the Korean beauty standard of a small head. Meanwhile, another man fretted nervously, contemplating the impending meeting with Julian. He felt as though he was walking into his own grave. He opens a grand door and announces Sir Julian and Sir Haran. The other's name was Haran, a direct blood relative of the Cryfart family. Julian internally questioned Haran's presence. Haran, visibly terrified, couldn't help but find Julian's demeanor unsettling. Julian, maintaining his composure, inquired about Heron's well-being. Haran, relieved by the seemingly normal interaction, expressed his concern over Julian's supposed fainting spell. They both forced laughter, an awkward tension hanging in the air. Julian wondered about Heron's motives, suspecting ulterior motives behind the visit. He found Julian's relaxed expression deceptive, labeling him a horrifying bastard and not an easy guy. He internally debated whether to try and unsettle Julian. Haran broached a rumor he'd heard, a rumor about Julian suffering from memory loss. Julian feigned surprise, wondering if this was the reason for the whispers he'd noticed. Haran pressed, trying to gauge Julian's reaction. Haran calmly dismissed the rumor, assuring Julian it was nothing to worry about. Julian, seeing through Haran's facade, directly asked if Haran believed the rumor. Julian responded with a chilling smile and a piercing gaze. Haran recoiled in shock, realizing Julian was completely unaffected by the memory loss ploy. That smile and those eyes confirmed Heron's suspicions. He had no idea what Julian was planning. He guessed that perhaps Julian already knew of his presence under the Noble Elders Association's orders. Haran composed himself and explained that he was there to deliver a message from the Elders Association, despite knowing about Julian's injuries. He referred to the Elders Association, a powerful group formed by the nobles. Bloodline was of utmost importance to them, and Julian, though a collateral family member, was considered the royal family's dog due to his exceptional swordsmanship and magic ability. This made him a threat, a thorn in the organization's side that they wanted to eliminate. The message was a clear sign that Julian needed to be cautious. Haran finally delivered the message. Julian was to participate in the Shut Eyes entrance test as an instructor. The Shut Eyes were a secretive organization that carried out missions for the palace, acting as the royal guard. They were an exclusive royal organization, comprised of individuals with incredible martial prowess. Julian's selection, especially by those who looked down upon him, was highly suspicious. Haran, internally, thought that Julian was too perceptive and that the request needed avoidance. However, to his surprise, Julian readily agreed to participate, stating he would go as the supervisor. Haran was flabbergasted. He reminded Julian of his injury, but Julian brushed it off, claiming it had miraculously healed. Haran, utterly confused, wondered if Julian was taking the bull by the horns, unsure how to curry favor in this situation. Haran, preparing to leave, announced his intention to create some distance, hinting at his distrust of Julian. Julian tried to stall him, but Haran remained resolute. Haran offered Julian an orchid, claiming it would bring peace of mind. He left with the orchid. As Haran walked away, he recalled a conversation with Julian that led to his room becoming a field of orchids. Julian seemed distressed from the amount of orchids in his room, as he bubbles that he needs orchids in his sleep. Now he needs to get rid of them like this. Julian prepared to depart, knowing he couldn't be seen without his sword. He also realized he needed to carefully choose his attire. He was revolted with the cloth. He threw the cloth, however he knew he must act like Julian. Haran, still shaken, greeted Julian as he emerged. Julian, eager to proceed with the interview, asked where it would take place. A horse-drawn carriage rumbled along a verdant path, the rhythmic clatter of hooves a steady counterpoint to the rustling leaves. Inside, Haran reiterated that the enrollment test for Shut Eyes would be held on the training grounds of Veil Academy. Julian, now fully inhabiting his villainous role, recalled Veil Academy. It hadn't been a significant location in the game, but the name still sparked a flicker of recognition. He subtly questioned what kind of place it was. Haran, taken aback by the question, presumed Julian was already familiar with the academy. A flicker of annoyance crossed Julian's face. He hadn't realized he was supposed to know about it. He reassured Haran it had just been so long he had forgotten. He continued on by saying he was sure it had changed since. Haran, relieved, agreed, and the conversation lapsed. Julian's internal monologue, however, continued to race. He worried about encountering anyone who might remember the original Julian from his time at the academy. The carriage wheel turned, signaling their approach. They were announced, Mr. Julian and Mr. Haran, finally arriving at their destination, Veal Academy. The academy building was impressive, far grander in reality than it had ever appeared in the game. Julian commented on its size, and then quickly, almost too quickly, backtracked, claiming he hadn't said anything. He was a bit amused by Haran's terror. Haran, however, was visibly shaken, unnerved by Julian's seemingly erratic behavior and the unsettling aura he exuded. As they entered, Julian tentatively addressed Haran as brother, inviting him to leave. To his surprise, Haran refused, insisting on staying to observe the test. Julian's red eyes gleamed, his expression unreadable, leaving Haran to wonder why he'd suddenly changed his mind. He also felt an ominous aura he hadn't sensed before. Haran, increasingly anxious, Julian felt a strange energy emanating from him. It wasn't physical power, but something more subtle, more unsettling. He struggled to identify it, finally realizing it was fear. A holographic window appeared before Julian, revealing a new character trait, color of negation. This unique ability allowed him to sense negative emotions directed towards him and identify the emotion by the color of its aura. This ability, Julian realized, was the key to Julian's manipulative prowess. He was adept at recognizing fear, the emotion that drove every human being, and using it to his advantage. He could also exploit anger, turning opponents reckless and prone to mistakes. This color of negation was likely the source of Julian's infamous reputation. Haran's continued presence, despite his obvious fear, intrigued Julian. He surmised that the Elders Association must have. Julian's continued existence clearly posed a threat to their plans. The spreading rumors of his memory loss were likely another attempt to destabilize him, creating an opportune moment for the association to act. He needed to find a way to survive and return his real life. As they walked, a student clashed with Julian and apologized profusely. Julian, with a predatory glint in his eyes, seized the opportunity. He had to use a ruthless question for the terrified the students begin to fear what Julian will do with him, stating he is done for. Julian is shocked. He have not done anything, and now all the academy is in fear, stating he hates Julian. All these emotions of fear below that are probably anger. He questioned why cannot Julian be a bit nicer. A woman, her long hair flowing gracefully, approached them, offering a formal greeting. Her name was Eileen Donachian, one of the main characters from Kill the Demon King, starting now. She was an instructor at Veal Academy, affiliated with the Adrathan Empire's Mage Tower. A genius mage, she could wield the metal element, a rare ability even among those who could handle all 5 elements. At just 24, she had already reached the 5th tier, a remarkable achievement. Eileen had provided crucial advice to Reich during the academy arc. Julian wondered why she was greeting him. Haran looked on, curious about their interaction. A tense atmosphere arose. Julian could see her aura. It turned out to be resentment. Julian questioned what had happened with this new character and Julian. Knowing Eileen's advanced magical abilities, Julian knew he had to tread carefully, avoiding anything that might arouse her suspicion. He needed a plan, and he needed it quickly. He questioned the halfling of the Donatian family, demanding to know who had permitted such familiarity. Suddenly, silence engulfed the place, making him question how his responses is now sync with Julian's character. This did nothing to calm down the situation. Eileen remained silent, and Julian, with a cruel smirk, pressed his advantage. He decided to play into the villain role, questioning what kind of noise people make when they are dying. They stood on the training grounds, the vast expanse bathed in the bright, almost ethereal light of the sky. Julian, adopting a mocking tone, asked Eileen if she was scared, his eyes gleaming with cruel amusement. He had successfully provoked her, and now he could finally relax his guard. Eileen, flustered, questioned if he had just drawn his sword. Her hands glowed with magical energy, a clear sign of her readiness to retaliate. Even Julian, a member of the elite Shut Eyes, shouldn't behave this way towards students and professors. She declared his actions an act of violence against Veil Academy, unforgivable and demanding immediate preparation for a confrontation. Julian, witnessing the escalation, looked on with a mixture of apprehension and confusion. Eileen, her blush deepening, declared she wouldn't be an easy opponent. Julian, internally, panicked, realizing he'd intended to simply scare her and back out, not engage in a full-blown fight. She took a step forward, approaching him. Eileen focused magic. The energy gathering around them crackled, and with a resounding clash, their powers collided. Wow, thought, realizing the fight had commenced. He had to commit now. Eileen, her gaze unwavering, challenged Julian for looking away during their confrontation. She commanded the students to evacuate the area immediately, her voice ringing with authority. Haran and the other students scrambled to escape, bewildered by the sudden turn of events. He regretted staying behind, wishing he had left when Julian initially told him to. Julian, seemingly amused by the chaos, taunted Eileen again. She told him once again that he shouldn't look away in the middle of the fight. A blush crept up Eileen's cheeks, and she unleashed a powerful blast of energy, yelling and exertion. Julian expertly deflected her attacks, though he found them surprisingly scary. It felt as though she was putting her emotions into each strike. Despite her power, he managed to evade every single blow, a testament to Julian's inherent skill. She reflected on how he once considered Julian the ideal noble. People were commenting that he was more appealing than the other nobles. Eileen, a freshman at Veil Academy, seemed captivated by him. Julian's true, charming nature shone through. The young women found him cool and respected as a rising star of swordsmanship. The sight of it seemed to ignite a spark of admiration, and perhaps something more in a young onlooker. She remembered him as someone she looked up to, someone who she thought could change the society's prejudice. She later confessed to him and got rejected. Eileen, fueled by a surge of emotion, unleashed another powerful attack. Julian was taken aback. That was a close call. She found it amusing. Julian decided to bring the situation under control. He launched forward, his movements precise and deadly. He didn't miss, and he did not want to hurt her. He asked if they should stop playing, taunting Eileen. She asked him if he's looking down on her and questioning his lack of using the moonlight sword despite seeing an opening. She pointed out that he could have killed the student if he had truly wanted to, sensing the strong mana emanating from him. He then, with a smirk, asked if she wished to know why he did all that. She confessed she did. He told her to show them to the test center, as he does not know where, and it is Haran's first time in the academy. The other people were too scared to do that, asking if she understand. So lead the way. You halfling. He told Eileen she was talking disrespectful. However, Haran realized the intention. It was the reason they came here. He stepped onto the training grounds, his presence immediately quieting the murmurs. With a formal introduction as Julian Cryfart Plassen, he declared himself in charge of conducting the Shut Eyes entrance exam. The assembled candidates, though likely aware of his reputation, couldn't help but look apprehensive. One individual, however, stood out. He was the second son of the Torso family, a family renowned for their long-standing friendship with the Cryfart family. It was generally accepted that those associated with the Shut Eyes, an organization directly affiliated with the imperial family, held significant honor. The entrance exam was a battle between an instructor and an applicant. If Julian managed to defeat the second son of the Torso family, it would bring dishonor upon them. The Elders Association would use this opportunity to bring Julian down. Haran realized this was the end of Julian's infamy. Julian confirmed that everyone present wished to join the Shut Eyes. Upon receiving confirmation, he scoffed, calling them cowardly pieces of trash. He mocked their ornament of swords, looking at them with disdain. The Shut Eyes, a place where everyone wished to enter, was known as the bloodiest place in the Empire. Julian declared his intention to give them a taste of that experience, as their senior. He revealed the acceptance criteria to kill him. The declaration sent a wave of shock and disbelief through the assembled candidates. Julian's declaration hung in the air, sharp and uncompromising. He realized the gravity of his words, the irreversible path he'd set himself upon. It was only now that he understood the true nature of the entrance exam, a duel. Heron's earlier plea for Julian to go easy on the applicants took on a chilling new meaning. Internally, Julian's mind raced. During the confrontation with Eileen, his only option had been to evade her attacks. Engaging in an official duel, however, was an entirely different matter. Whispers will arose amongst the onlookers, some questioning Julian's strength, others suggesting he was feigning memory loss. He was growing weary. Adding to the pressure, he knew that if he acted suspiciously, someone might attack him. Eileen's watchful gaze, a mix of apprehension and something unreadable, added to his unease. He decided that the best course of action was to be upfront and aggressive, taunting the applicants to throw them off balance. He reiterated the brutal condition of the exam. It would only end with his death or the forfeit of all applicants. The crowd, predictably, recoiled in shock and fear. One by one, they began to forfeit, their hands raised in surrender. Haran, aghast, thought Julian of lying, stunned that everyone was forfeiting. He could only laugh nervously at the unfolding chaos. With all the applicants gone, Julian declared the exam over. He felt relieved. He turned to Eileen, wondering if her perception of him had shifted. He couldn't sense any negative emotions from her, which puzzled him. He wondered if his color of negation trait was malfunctioning, a potentially disastrous situation. Eileen remained silent, reminding her of the old Julian, the one who always kept to himself. But he did not know he could only see negative emotions with the color of negation ability. Just then, a new figure entered the scene, greeting Julian with a boisterous, "Hey, Julian!" It was Razlet, and Haran greeted him nervously. Julian stood firm, but inwardly was filled with a sense of trepidation as he noticed Heron's shocked expression. Julian complimented Heron's efforts. Lazarus, full of boisterous energy, introduced himself as being in charge of administrative tasks for the Shut Eyes. He confirmed that the rumors of Julian's memory loss were false, praising Julian for completing the exam without fighting any applicants. Razlet continued to chatter, oblivious to the growing tension. He mentioned that the second son of the Torso family had been one of the applicants, a fact that clearly irritated Haran. Haran, unable to contain himself, accused Lazarus of arrogance, questioning his respect for someone still in training. Julian calmly pointed out that Haran might be misunderstanding something. He revealed the Shut Eyes didn't accept nobles since it's directly affiliated with Imperial family. The only accepts comers or fallen nobles to join. Haran reminded Julian of his own status, questioning how is he part of Shut Eyes. A collateral member of the Kryfart family, a halfling, and a dog of the Imperial family, not a true Kryfart. It was revealed that the second son of the Torso family had taken the entrance exam, despite knowing he wouldn't pass the second screening round. This suggested either an attempt by the Torso family to teach their son through experience or a more sinister scheme. Heron's reaction strongly hinted at the latter. Julian, however, maintained that it was simply a misunderstanding. He warned that anything else would be unfortunate. He turned to leave and was greeted as master. He told them he would skip dinner. He instructed his maids not to let anyone into his office. Placing the moonlight sword on his desk, he collapsed into a chair, finally able to relax. Reflecting on the day's events, he concluded that the Elders Association had indeed orchestrated the entire entrance exam as a trap. He was fortunate not to have been caught, but he wondered how long his luck would last. He regretted not using the moonlight sword during the confrontation, a fact that clearly bothered him. He was a capable swordsman, capable of wielding great power. It was worth a try, he thought, to unlock the moonlight sword's potential. He confidently activated the sword's power. Julian gripped the hilt of the moonlight sword, its ethereal blue glow reflecting in his determined eyes. He knew he'd pushed things too far, and now he had to figure out how to truly wield this legendary weapon. He announced, opening Moonlight Sword. The sword, now fully drawn, hummed with a power that resonated deep within him. He realized that simply activating it wasn't enough. Julian possessed the innate trait of exceptional swordsman, allowing him to intuitively understand swordsmanship. The path of the sword, the way to unlock its full potential, should have been clear to him. His status window confirmed this, stating he was born to walk the path of a swordsman, able to wield any sword regardless of type. But that wasn't enough. While there were countless skilled individuals in the Empire, even hundreds of named characters, Julian stood apart. The disparity in skill, in the use of aura and mana, was undeniable. This was the reason he could survive with such a reckless approach. Could he truly do it right now, though? He knew that misusing mana could lead to its backward flow, potentially destroying his vital organs. Wielding mana was inherently dangerous. He steeled himself, knowing he had to prove himself eventually, whether sooner or later. He was confident in his knowledge, having played the game countless times. He focused his will, drawing upon the accumulated mana within his heart. He directed the energy through the 38 mana meridians, concentrating on the 6 crucial great veins, particularly the one connecting his heart to his head, the essence of mana itself. His eyes glowed red as he activated this critical area. The aura surrounding him began to fluctuate wildly. Now, he thought, was the time to relocate the mana. The resistance was greater than he expected, a testament to Julian's inherent abilities. But he persevered, and with a final surge of effort, he succeeded. The Moonlight Sword, though, remained incomplete, its power still weak. The crescent moon symbol on the blade was a reminder of its unfinished state. Still, the fact that he'd managed to manifest its form, to call forth the moon on the very first day, was a significant achievement. He practiced with it. With a sigh of relief, he recognized that he had at least reached the skill level of a knight. Now, all that remained was to complete the Moonlight Sword. But his knowledge of the game was slowly running out. He needed someone who knew Julian, someone Julian would seek advice from. Just then, a maid announced the arrival of a guest. The timing was impeccable, though he wondered if Julian even had any friends. A young man, bursting with energy, greeted him. With a boisterous "Sir Julian," it was Lazarus, surprised and delighted that Julian remembered his name. He nervously wondered if his behavior the previous day had been too much, questioning if he was fearless or simply stupid for speaking so casually to Julian. Julian, cutting through the pleasantries, inquired about Lazarus's purpose. Lazarus explained that he had been ordered by the commander to confirm the results of the entrance exam held at Veil Academy. When Julian questioned his presence, Lazarus clarified that receiving the results and delivering them was part of the standard procedure. Julian, however, found such procedures useless and inefficient. Julian told him to report that there were 0 passes on the entrance exam. He hesitated, then cautiously asked if Julian wanted him to deliver the report himself. With a menacing glare, Julian offered to do it himself, much to Lazarus's shock and confusion. Julian even offered him a ride to make the journey easier, confusing him further. Lazarus, his internal monologue revealed, questioned Julian's sudden change, thinking maybe it was because of previous events. He nervously said, "Julian, you should have lived a kinder life." The visit had brought to the surface Julian's need for advice. He needed the guidance of the Shut Eyes commander, someone who would undoubtedly know Julian well. He saw Lazarus' interruption as a chance to put pressure on the Shut Eyes. As the imposing building loomed before them, a frantic voice called out, "Commander! Commander!" A panicked individual rushed in, warning of a serious situation. Julian Kryfarplassen had come in person.